The lawsuit by the Beacon Center in Nashville cites a single line, a single sentence in the coding provisions that prohibits a home business operator from having customers come to his or her door to park in the lot. The story is of Elijah, a man named Elijah Shaw, a music engineer who's had some noted records on his mixer, and the dealing with a codes officer. The codes officer first sent a letter to him, and then sent messages and made an appearance. He narrated Elijah's website in a phone call and social media postings over the phone, pointing out that Elijah was recording music and podcasting from his home. Elijah cooperated, the suit says, telling the officer that he had a home recording studio and wished to bring it into compliance. The officer then invented ways Elijah would have to comply. She ordered him to remove his recording rates and welcome video from the Toy Box Studios website, to remove the Toy Box Studios address from Google Maps, and to stop posting videos of bands performing in his studio to YouTube, even though internet postings do not violate the client prohibition, which is the rule at issue in the lawsuit filed a couple of days ago. The officer ended the call with a warning that codes might have to schedule an inspection to verify that all recording equipment had been removed from Elijah's home. It's a story about an abuse of the state through its agent, its division, Nashville city government in Davidson County. One repeated elsewhere across the country, and one brought into view by the case Elijah Shaw and Patricia Rayner, who's a hairdresser, against the metropolitan government of Nashville and Davidson County, the defendant. And at issue is the rights of the people to be unmolested, to do harmless and innocent things, to have people come and go, to do business, to make a living. Mrs. Rayner, in her 60s, a widow, in declining health, had put into her garage a single seat hair salon operation, and with a $10,000 investment in trying to make efforts to make that room comply with the codes as she saw them. But it wasn't enough, and she was told, well, you're just going to have to, you just can't do it here. If clients come get their haircut at your house, sorry, we're not going to let that happen. It has to be done in a professional business studio. Of course, that raised her expenses extraordinarily, and Mrs. Rayner, Patricia Rayner, Pat Rayner, joined in the litigation. So here in Nashville, the Music City, you can't do music in your house. The whole idea of this line of type, again, a line of type that has serifs on the little blades that governmental words, governmental sentences, and paragraphs all have in Courier type or Time type or New York type, all with the serifs, which indicate compulsion and coercion. This is David Tulis, and I'm speaking to you in Helvetica and Geneva fonts typeface, which is the neutral typeface, right? It is neutral and very pro-government in the sense that we believe in self-government. And Helvetica type has the advantage of not having blades on its words. Okay, so everything I have to say is voluntary in nature. It is about cooperation and agreement about local economy, which is my theme here on the David Tulis Show. I have a story out this morning at Nooganomics.com which covers some unusual ground. And it is in this same direction where we have the state itself today, the modern state, which abuses the people in the name of taking care of them. And it's under the doctrine in the Latin, it's called parens patri. Parens patri. You may be familiar with another Latin phrase in the context of your children in school, and that's called in loco parentis. And you can almost figure out what that means. In loco means in the location of, parentis, parent, in the location of parents. So when your child is in school, there is a function, a legal function that takes over, where the school system, the LEA, right, the local education agency, takes over the custodial authority of the parent. And in a larger sense, when writ large over culture as a whole, you have the doctrine of parens patri. It is a very paternalistic doctrine. The government is the father of the people. That is kind of what is meant by parens patri from patriarch, right? The patriarch is your parent, right? The fatherland is your parent, and the fatherland is your caretaker. It's an old line of thinking that developed as a kind of a heresy within Christianity, of course, in the Roman Catholic world back, earlier than the 1300s, but certainly at least from the time of Marsilius of Padua, who was an Aristotelian thinker who wanted to drain from Christianity any interest in the outer world, right, the outer life. And his thinking dominates today in Chattanooga, where most Christian people would agree with him. They would say, well, Christianity has nothing to say about government, has nothing to say about rules against home businesses that try to get people in. Christianity doesn't care anything about that. And so most Christians would believe in this heresy here in Chattanooga. The modern name for that heretical concept is called pietism. Pietism holds that your personal piety is the only thing that God cares about, and He cares not about government, about the doctrine of parens patri, for example, and how it steals from the people their future, steals from them their hope, and acts as oppressor of the people. And Christians are, since the 1960s, probably since the beginning of the output, the very massive output of the Christian Reconstructionist Reformed writers back in the late 60s is when R.J. Rushdoony began his work. There has been progress against this error that means that common people, those professing faith in God particularly, are simply inert, and that they live in a world in which the public realm is neutral. It's morally and ethically neutral, and it really can't be criticized. It just simply cannot be criticized. And that was what Marsilius of Padua and his many followers, Thomas Hobbes, for example, and others, even in our day. And you find these people at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, right, and at UT, and in probably even the Christian colleges here, have to some extent this concept that there is no external law that binds all, but the law of God simply applies to the individual and has nothing to say about banking or economics or trade barriers or warfare or the maintenance of the peace in a city. Christianity has nothing to say about any of those topics. They're all what we have is normative because it's there. It essentially says that power makes it right, and that is, of course, is a base concept in humanism. Power is right, and if you read, I was just reading, I think Sunday night, in Rushdoony's book Christianity and the State, a very noted volume from I think late 1980s, 1986, Ross House Books. A book I've read very carefully, and I'm holding it up here for my Facebook viewer on Nooga Radio. I do thank you for tuning in through Facebook and also on YouTube. A very noted book. It's available online. I couldn't find it this morning to give you a link, but I do mention it in the essay. The essay at Nooganomics.com is about how the state operates this parens patri doctrine. And because it is a religious concept, because the state is the center of morality and the center of social order, it violates basic legal principles, in fact, its own principles. And it is you could say this is kind of a deep state mystery that I'm exploring today. And you won't get that really at any media platform in Chattanooga except mine. That would be that of our chief sponsor, Nooganomics.com. And my name is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time. I argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. And the number is 800-8949. Just jot that down, 800-8949. I always have time for your call here on the David Tulis Show. And if for some reason I can't get to everything in my stack, well, there's always tomorrow. And we can push back the news headlines as needed to get to the vitals, right? And that's kind of what I really want to get to every day is the vitals here on the David Tulis Show. And by the way, I do want you to go to Nooganomics.com. There is an event in Dayton that is sponsored by and organized by June Griffin. She is the noted matron of the Constitution in the Chattanooga area. She has she's a Wesleyan minister. She's a very noisome person in a way. She's the bane of talk show hosts, right? and letters to the editor, handlers at the Times Free Press. And what I want to suggest is that you go to Nooganomics.com and find out the details about the Bill of Rights banquet. It's on the 15th of Friday night, and you can find the details there. It's $25 a person, and my story tells a little bit about what it's about and what Mrs. Griffin says about it. And there's the address in which to send your check, and please make sure that you do make a note that I'll be there. And so if you would like to enjoy a hot meal with me, David Tulis, your host here at 92.7, I'm not a speaker or anything. I'm just there, probably planning to write a report about the people there, what they say, and so on. And if you go to Nooganomics.com, probably one of my best pieces is about last year's Bill of Rights dinner. And it was in one of these on-the-spot bits of journalism that I'd say is not bad piece of writing, kind of long-form news journalism that captures the flavor of the evening and has a sympathetic portrait of Mrs. Griffin, who's a woman whose husband, an elderly man, is in peril in his health and making many runs to the VA, and that is the Griffin family in Dayton, Tennessee. Now, the story. So the question that I wanted to get back to about this sort of pretended deity of the state is that morality inheres in the state. That is kind of the idea of the modern man, right? You're Democrat, you're Republican, all believe the same thing. They share many of the fights between the two parties are sort of intra-family squabbles. One is the aggressive revolutionary socialist, the Democrat, and the traditional socialist and collectivist is the Republican. I'm talking here about the Gerald McCormicks, right? People like that they're not principially for the marketplace. They're not principially in defense of the individual, the innocent, private, harmless activity of families and small businesses. They're not for that at all. I mean, they would say they are, but in fact, they've done nothing to push back some of the longstanding abuses by the state here in Tennessee of the people. And this thinking, this presumption of authority under parens patriae, again, where the state is the father of the people, right? The state is the caretaker, not just of clear instances of necessity, but of everyone, right? The state is the caretaker of all the citizens without exception. Even you, my listener, you are under the care of the state. It is sort of in loco parentis for you, even though you're a grown man. You've made love to your wife, your woman, and you have children. You run a business. All the same to it, you are under its care. And this review at Nooganomics.com, let me just try to give you a shorthand of it. And it touches on the question of standing. Standing is the legal requirement that you show yourself having been injured by the party you are accusing, right? And that's true in civil matters. It's true in criminal matters. There's no, according to one researcher, there's no accepting that anywhere that the state doesn't have to show standing. And there is a case in the Court of Appeals that is being appealed to the highest court in the state that raises this question. One of the three main points. One point is on the gun law. The other point is on the transportation statute. And the third point is on this question of standing, which is a remarkable analysis. It is a quasi, well, let's see, not quasi, but it is half legal and half theological in nature. Standing is something you have if someone injures you. You then have standing. You've been injured, right? The neighbor did something foolish and dropped a tree on your two trucks, your two pickup trucks in your parking area. You have standing to sue him for damages if he doesn't make compensation, or if his insurance company doesn't make compensation. You have standing. So you have to show an injury. And the other one, the second point in standing, is that you have to show a connection between what the other person did and the injury. Okay, first the injury, and then the action that caused the injury. That's number two. And then number three is that litigation or a criminal case is the remedy for it. And the state doesn't have standing in any of these criminal matters because it cannot show itself to have been injured. How can the state show itself to have been injured by many of the claims that it files? right, on behalf of unknown parties as State of Tennessee versus so-and-so at the bookings page at the Chattanoogan.com. Go to the bookings page at Chattanoogan.com and just go through those charges and those soulful and dour faces, all kind of under the mask of indignation of mostly very common people. And I wear a bow tie every day because when it's my turn to be on that page, I want to look like I belong there, and I have something to say. Okay, I'm always prepared to be arrested, and I hate to think that people in a free country have to live that way, and yet noted patriots like Gavin Syme, SEIM, has had enough of abuse and has gone to Mexico and is telling. He's a filmmaker and a constitutionalist in, I think, Washington State. He's saying how much freer it is down here. How we don't have to fear police abuse. We don't have to fear being knocked off. Though there is, of course, in Mexico the gang problem exacerbated by the drug war and drug prohibition. Both of them create crime. The drug war creates crime and creates gangs. So in the thinking that dominates the Christian church and of course that dominates the state itself, the state is morality incarnate, right? The state is the moral center. It is the basis of morality. Now, I'm not saying government, right? The government is separate from the state. It is distinct from the state, but it is like the state. It interpenetrates at every point with it, but it is distinct, but it's not the same. Government is what you vote for, right? Government is the humane, necessary part that God requires to be there in Romans 13. But the state, which God does not require to be there, but is there anyway, in our revolutionary times. We live in revolutionary times, heirs of the French Revolution and the work of philosophers such as Thomas Hobbes in the 1600s and many others. We live in an era where there is this religious corporation, a legal fiction. It is a legal fiction. And we are exploring that here and trying to find out how it is that it damages us and trying to find out how we can elude the damage. And that's, I think if we understand the problems that we face, we can more optimistically, and Christians among people who might hear of what I have to say, can use it productively for God's glory, right? That's my hope. We live in a time where there is a mass use of executive power, where reasons of state control, right? Reasons of state, we call it compelling state interest. In Tennessee law, it's called compelling state interest. The state is the ultimate order of things, the ultimate orderer, and the state is the acme of human existence, right? Acme, as the coyote would get his supplies to get the roadrunner from Acme. Acme is, of course, the peak, the best. The state is man at his acme, his best organized, his most proper use of hope, encouragement, authority, and resources, all brought into the control of the state through fascism and through statute. And in the state, there inheres this predestination, right? It's not just Presbyterians such as me who talk about predestination. Everybody has a concept of predestination. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And I do have time for your call. Predestination belongs to God because God is sovereign. And yet the modern state predestines everyone. And that's how you have smoking rules, right? That's how you have all kinds of niggling controls in even in city ordinances. Even the city council will draft rules that pick people down to pieces, right? Pick people down to pieces, such as the Airbnb ordinance, which, as we have explained elsewhere and at other times, is unconstitutional on several points. It's unconstitutional and should not be tolerated by free people. But if we accept it, it is because we agree. We agree with parens patriae. We agree with the state as caretaker, not just of orphans and the deranged, but of all. And if we agree with that concept, then we deserve what we have, and we should not be complaining. And so I just want you to know that, if you're not complaining, just accept what you have. Mark West is the local Tea Party activist, and he's not complaining about Diane Black. Diane Black, about whom I think I would probably complain if I had a chance to think about her, is running for Congress. She's a federal representative, and she, along with she's a candidate for governor. Another woman candidate is May Beavers, the former state representative. But here in Hamilton County, Mark West is joined in favor of Diane Black by Chris Clem, the former state representative, Dr. Sean Jones, Brian O'Shaughnessy, the former state representative Bobby Wood, and Jean Wood, I believe that is the former Representative Wood's wife. And these are Republican establishment stalwarts. Mark West is probably not a Republican establishment stalwart, though he is a noted conservative here and a devout Christian. So he is siding with Diane Black. I'm not going to make that step. I don't think I'm bold enough, courageous enough to make that step to trust a federal politician to represent the interests of the people of this state. This is David Tulis arguing for local economy and the free market. And now some announcements.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM.